Matt Brown, welcome to the Sport Profile.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Happy to be here.
I need to just say a quick statement. I was preparing
Sure.
for this interview. Is it true that Extra Points is sponsoring a bowl game?
Not only are we sponsoring a bowl game, this is our second time we've done it. We sponsored a bowl game last year. Um,
Really?
yeah, you know what? This is fortuitous. I've got this on my desk already. Here's the bowl patch from the game that we did last year. We made blazers. I had it sewed on right here. My blazers are upstairs in the closet. But
Oh, that's sick.
we played it at the NFL Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton. It was on Flow Sports, and we had about 1,000 people there. It was a really positive experience for the D3 athletes that we were working with, and
Yeah.
we wanted to do it again. Like that, one of the really, I think, cool things about having your own company is that there's no one to tell you you can't do the stupid thing. And we've done, and I say that like not pejoratively. It starts doing a bowl game's a little bit stupid.
I was going to say,
But
like, did you think it was stupid? Like, walk me through that a little bit.
Sure. So I'll zoom out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So part of the reason we wanted to do it was my publication is deep into the inside baseball, like how the college sports sausage is made.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think that I've learned from doing this is one way to really understand how something works is to do it. You know, one of the ways that we, I think, had better NIL coverage in 2021, 2022 is because we did NIL deals. I called up athletes and said, yeah, I'll pay you $500 to promote Extra Points. Let's go through that process. Let's sign some deals, and we can learn about what works and what doesn't. And that's shaped how I've approached this.
Yeah.
We did better coverage of the development of EA Sports college football, not just because I was able to break some stories, but because I've made a computer game. And you can play that computer game on Extra Points right now. And so when I would talk to a project manager or a developer at EA, I'm not a 10-year software developer, but I knew, I think, some different questions to ask than maybe a reporter might have. So one of the things that I'm really convinced of, and I've written about this a lot on EP and even a little bit today, so I think one of the core challenges, if you're a leader in this space, is how do I earn more money? How do I grow revenue for my department?
Sure.
And an increasing focus of that is going to be in sponsorship sales, creating new events, new IP, and understanding the ins and outs of event promotion and management even more than your regularly scheduled games. Like I can interview a bunch of event promoters and MTE companies and Intersports of the world, and I'm going to keep doing that. But I bet I can learn more if we actually tried to do one of these things ourselves. And so that's what we did. And I live in Chicago now, but I grew up in Ohio. I'm from a D3 Ohio town.
Yeah.
And knew a lot of schools there. And so when an opportunity came up to be the title sponsor of a bowl game at that level, at a price point we could afford, because we tried the New Mexico Bowl first, and that was a little bit too rich for our blood.
Really?
Yeah, and that was kind of the impetus for being involved with the game. And I would say after 1 year, that was really one of the highlights of my career. And I'm excited to do it again this fall.
I mean, dude, like you literally sponsored a bowl game. Like that's a sentence you can say that like
Yeah.
only
I flipped the coin. I was there at the beginning of the game. I gave the trophy to Westminster when they beat Marietta for the championship. Like
Oh, it's
I did
amazing.
everything that the Fiesta Bowl people do, just at a slightly more affordable price.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, like only a handful of people in the world can say like, "Hey, I sponsored a bowl game." Like,
Pretty cool.
yeah, where does that rank on like personal achievement, life achievement? Like, obviously professionally it's up there, but like that's
I
got to
would say,
transcend career.
yeah, I think it's one of the cooler things I've gotten to do in this job, and it didn't really feel real, I think, until we got there, and we tried to lean into it. Like again,
Yeah.
we got bright blue blazers,
Hmm.
and so the bowl patch on them, so we would look like Sun Bowl or Fiesta Bowl executives. But it was,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, this was what kind of made the whole thing move beyond a meme and into
Sure.
something really meaningful. Was around the third quarter, and I go, my wife and kids are at the game with me. They're in the luxury box, and they're going with me into the premium seating area where most of the fans were, because the weather sucks, right? It's Canton in late November. It's like
Sure.
19 degrees. It's leading.
Terrible.
So we're in there, and suddenly this big, 6'3" burly guy, looks like he could have walked off the set of Sons of Anarchy, comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, are you the Extra Points guy?" I am. Yeah. This is my company. This is our game. And he gives me a big hug, which is not what I was expecting. And I was like, "All right, so nice to meet you too, sir." And he's explaining, my son is an offensive lineman on Marietta, and he injured his leg in preseason. And he
Mm.
thought that his career was going to be over. He was a senior. But because of this bowl game, because the Marietta didn't make the D3 playoffs, but they had a really good season.
Yeah.
But because of this bowl game, he gets an opportunity to play one more game, suit up with his brothers, take one more bus ride, one more team dinner, which is all he wanted. And that's what he was spent the last several months doing for his physical therapy and getting himself back into this position. So thank you for making this possible. So we
Wow.
can still have this memory. And if you don't feel excited about that, especially because, and you know this too, right? When you were at Sportico, when you've been following this world,
Yep.
a lot of writing about the business of college sports is jumping from one catastrophe to another. I joke that sometimes this is
Yeah.
the apocalypse. You're just talking to a lot of people who are bitching and moaning about how it's all about the money and how hard their jobs become and how everything's falling apart.
Yeah.
So to be able to shift from writing about Ohio State's NIL budget or what the Saudi Arabians are trying to do with Florida State or something,
Yep.
and beyond the field with 120 guys who didn't know you from Adam 2 weeks ago and are now crying because they get to host the trophy and have one more event.
Yeah.
That's a special moment. And I think that's important to remind ourselves of. We don't want to romanticize college sports too much or mythologize it, but this is what it's like for the majority of people. There are
Yes.
a lot more Mariettas and Grove Cities and Westminsters and Case Westerns than there are Ohio States and Floridas. And they deserve
Totally.
to have a high quality experience too.
Absolutely. You mentioned something very interesting, and you talked about transition, and I think I'd be remiss if I did not ask you about your transition from being a fourth grade teacher
Yep.
to now leading a prominent NIL college sports publication. Like, those worlds don't match.
You know, you would think that, but they have more in common than you think.
Please, educate me. Educate
sure.
me,
So,
Mr. Brown, Professor.
Mr. Brown. Oh boy, I still kind of panic.
You taught fourth grade. I don't think they're calling you Professor Brown.
No, look,
What they
don't-
call you?
we gotta
Is it
be honest.
Mr. Brown?
Well, Mr. Brown is what they're supposed to be calling me. Sometimes there were some four-letter words attached to that too, right? So, and we'll get to that. So, I don't have a journalism degree.
Sure.
I have a degree in political science. I went to American University for a year and then ended up transferring closer to where I grew up and finished at Ohio State.
Yeah.
And what I thought I wanted to be when I grew up as a student was I thought I wanted to be a lawyer that worked in education policy. I was one of these the idiots from the early 2000s that watched The West Wing and was like, I want to be that. Like I got radicalized by this. So you go to American, which is like West Wing University, and you get there and you're like, oh, these guys are all assholes. I don't want to do this.
Everybody gets radicalized by a good TV show.
Yeah, Aaron Sorkin is a very good fiction writer, right? So
Yeah.
and it wasn't really until my senior year at Ohio State when I realized I don't think I want to be a lawyer. The not Solomon Brothers. We were like 4 economic recessions, ago back then. But you were graduating into a financial crisis.
Yeah.
And I was like, now it's not the time to borrow $130,000 to go to Ohio State or Texas for law school. And
Nope.
Documentary review is boring. It's not for me. I think what I really want to do is write. But Ohio State, when I was there, didn't have an undergraduate journalism program because Ohio University is like an hour and a half away, and that has an elite journalism school. Script school, it's one of the very best in the Midwest, and so I think the thought was, like, why have a competing program?
No, for sure.
Yeah. But I didn't have the money or the time to transfer a second time. Right? I'm almost done with my degree. I didn't come from a lot of money. And
Sure.
I needed to to graduate. So like, all right, let's finish this, and we'll find a way into media some other way. Like I would be a stringer at that,
Okay.
covering high school football or city council meetings or something, whatever I could.
Yeah.
So then I joined Teach for America, which takes people that don't study education and puts them into high
Oh, yeah.
challenging environments. Like
Yeah, I had a couple friends do that, I think.
Yeah, New York, Cleveland, DC. So I went to New Orleans. And I got like 6 weeks of student teaching training in a completely different part of the country. I taught in Phoenix.
It's a very big difference from DC.
Yeah, got on a plane the day after I got my diploma, went to Phoenix for training, and then ended up in Louisiana. And I was not a good teacher. And I wasn't a good teacher partly because I don't think I was mature enough, and also because I didn't have the cultural competency and a lot of these soft skills to be effective in that kind of environment. Here's this
Sure.
white-looking guy from the north coming in, but maybe accidentally breaking a union to post-Katrina New Orleans, only
Mhm.
male in the building, and there were just so many things I didn't know, so I wasn't effective.
Yeah.
And what I tell people though is like this was actually really good training to be a journalist because what the hell is Urban Meyer going to say to me that I haven't heard from a fourth grader in Louisiana already? Right? What's a bad day at the office? Oh no, chart beats down. Okay, was there a snake in your office? Because there was in New Orleans. Because when it would rain really a lot, my trailer would flood and there'd be animals
Oh
in
my
there.
God.
Right? Like it resets your your baseline for what a difficult day is. But then
Yes.
also teaching is fundamentally about taking complicated concepts, making them simple to understand, and to communicate with people who often don't want to listen to you. Which I think is a lot of what being a reporter is, and a lot of what being a writer is. Right? My first three jobs in life were teaching fourth grade, working as a political field organizer, which was I was knocking doors in rural Indiana for a Democrat during the Tea Party election.
Door to
So
door.
not a lot of people, yeah, not a lot of people want to talk to me about that too, right? You're knocking on doors to go, want to talk about Social Security? No, go fuck yourself, right? Like, but that's there's that, and then before all of that,
Yeah.
I was a Mormon missionary. The whole point is to knock on doors and talk about Jesus to people who do not want to talk to you. So
What?
I have a pretty thick skin at this point, right? You do those three things, so it's like, all right, fine, Gene Smith, do your worst, because I wouldn't say I recommend that path to everybody,
Nah, not
but
for everyone.
those three things taught me a lot that I don't think I would have learned at Ohio's journalism school or had I gone to Columbia or Northwestern or something. Because you can teach someone how to file a FOIA. You could teach them how to dig through document repositories or how to interview somebody.
Right.
But how to get something across to someone who doesn't want to have that conversation, that's a different skill set. And I
Oh
think I
my
got
God.
a lot
I
on the ground for that.
Oh, it's so relatable. I actually did door to door for like a month too. I
It sucks.
was with I was with a company called Victory Home Remodeling, and I'm not here to shit on Victory Home Remodeling, but I did it for a month. Definitely taught me a lot about myself
Yeah.
and put me in a lot of fight or flight scenario situations where, I definitely see the value in that, but like, yeah, I did it for a month, and it was like I just realized that was not for me.
No, most people wash out of that stuff pretty quickly. If you get good at it, you can make a lot of money.
I know.
Um, I
I
tell
mean,
people now, if I never knock another door the rest of my life, I will be a happy man.
yeah. I mean, yeah, and I definitely see the parallels with journalism a little bit. So it's very interesting you said that. Gene Smith, hey, do your worst. But something I've also know that you personally preach. You've written about this a lot. Is that with Extra Points, um, you have said a lot about prioritizing the human rather than the algorithm. And I'm wondering if you can expand on that, kind of philosophy a
Sure.
little bit and how it's how you prioritize it for yourself, as a person and also with your career.
So, my first big journalism job was working for Vox Media. And I was
Hmm.
there for about 7 years. I had been doing freelance work for a lot of newspapers before that. I done some smaller scale stuff for magazines. But that was the
Yeah.
first big reporting place. And as many people listening to this know, most of those kind of companies make their money through primarily through programmatic and display advertising.
Hmm.
The more clicks you get, the more page views you get for a website, the higher, more money you get from throwing ads up on a page, and how you pay for everything. It's the content itself is free. You might charge more for a direct sold advertising campaign somewhere, but it's primarily programmatic, and that has its advantages. It's much easier to sell and doesn't require as much of an infrastructure. But I think as people who have been on the internet for a while know, it creates some pretty terrible incentives for publishers and for brands. And
Sure.
it's anti-consumer. And now the money you make from programmatic advertising gets less and less every year because people will just give that money to Facebook or to Google rather than directly spending it on a publication. So
Right.
one of the things that was like important to me when I got laid off from Vox in 2020, when I started Extra Points, was I don't want to depend on that stuff to make my living. I
Hmm.
don't want to be one of 80,000 other people writing about Alabama's quarterback battle. Because, one, what are the odds that I, who did not play college football, can say something schematically more interesting or insightful about Alabama's quarterback that the rest of the internet can't do?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
if I
it's not like
can,
you, it's not like you can do. I mean, you mentioned before you created a video game to like understand the EA nuances,
yeah,
but it's not like you can become a college football player to understand the nuances of writing about college football.
yeah, George Plimpton already did that. Paper Lion's already a book. Like no one's gonna let me do that again. And if you put me in the SEC, I would literally die. Compare how they did things in the '60s. So like that's not an option. But when you write a newsletter, you don't have to chase that scale. Like I sell ads on Extra Points. I would love
Hmm.
to continue to sell ads, but the majority of the money that I make is through reader subscriptions. It's through one person paying me $9, used to be $7, to read what I publish, and that means that I don't need to have 300,000 people reading my stuff. It would be cool if they did, but I write about topics that are typically not going to get that kind of scale or that kind of audience. What's
Hmm.
important to me is that I reach the right 25,000 or 35,000 people and that enough of them pay for it that I can have a job.
Yeah.
So to kind of zoom out, like this is a true story, but running Extra Points now for 5 years, I've written substantially more about UConn football and UMass football than I have Alabama football,
Yeah.
which if I was working for CBS would be insane. Like that
Shout
would
out
be a
mid
great
majors, man. Love
yeah,
them.
it'd be a great way to get fired. But in this business model, that works really well. Probably my most dedicated audience are people that either closely follow or work for FCS institutions or what we call 1 AAA institutions. Your
Right.
Horizon League, your Big Sky, your Big West, your ASUN. Those are. I mean, I still care about Ohio State. I win them.
Totally.
I'd like them to beat Washington next week, but
Hmm. You are an alum.
yeah, I'm fishing in a different pond. And
Yeah.
when you, the nice thing about newsletters, it's not as perfect as maybe the newsletter publishing software systems would have you believe, but I don't have to rely on algorithms as much to reach my audience, and I don't rely on them to tell me what to write about.
Right.
I am trying to focus on reaching a specific person or specific people rather than whatever Mark Zuckerberg wants me to say.
Right. And I've always admired that about you too. Just from reading the newsletter, it's such a very conversational tone, and I always love how you prioritize that specifically. So, just to give you your flowers there.
Shit, it's the only way I ever learned how to write. So I'm glad that you like it. The only way I
Yeah.
ever learned was to write how I talk. And so when I sit down there and you read EP, I want you to think that this is reading like I'm sitting there talking with you. And
Right.
that
And
includes with
people always say that, but they don't. People always say like, "Oh, write what you talk, write how you talk," but like they never actually mean that.
it is not always easy to do. And
Right.
sometimes people will write back and are like, I appreciate you writing how you talk, but that's why you fucked up all these commas in here, right? Like this is the way you read that speaking style. And this is kind of the bet that I have to make with my audience, right? Like, all right, there's going to be a typo in here occasionally. It's not going to completely cue to AP style. I don't swear as often as I used to in print. I'll do it occasionally,
Sure.
but I will always use first person.
Right.
I think throughout this conversation, you might be able to think like, this is kind of like reading an EP because this is for good or for ill. I'm not for everybody, but
Right.
for good or for ill, the newsletter
Same
is good.
here. Same here. I mean, I feel like my audience is people who recognize your name, Matt Brown, and read EP and want to learn more about you. And that's my goal with all of this. And, you're obviously very entrenched in college sports, but what is it about the business side that is so pure to you? Why did that really become your niche as opposed to, as you alluded to before, like writing about the quarterback of Alabama?
Yeah, I think part of this is my own personal interest, right?
Sure.
I came from an educator home. My mom immigrated to the U.S. when she was 8, dropped out of college to marry my dad, goes back to school, never stops, becomes a professor in her 50s, and it is
Wow.
taught education policy before she passed away. And like so,
Right.
our homes growing up were talking about like ed policy stuff. That was part of why that was what I was interested in.
That's the dinner table conversation.
Yeah, I know everyone else is like, you guys are gigantic nerds. I'm like, that's true. But Um, we invited you here, and you accepted. So you,
I mean,
you,
listen,
you were getting into it.
listen. People
But
commiserating over NIL at the dinner table, yeah, they're
they're
also
also
nerds.
also also huge nerds, and I think my to kind of combine all of my professional experiences and personal interests in K-12 education, in electoral politics, in policy, and some of the travel that I've done here.
Yeah.
All of those things matter when you're talking about college sports. And I think I came into it knowing I had a little bit more interest and a little bit more background and a little bit more multidisciplinary experience to help me write about that. And then the more you write about it, the more you develop that muscle.
Absolutely.
And then you carve out a niche. I am interested in learning about these things because what I love about college sports is I think everything is college sports. There's a college sports angle to almost any other kind of major story. But it's also a
Explain.
recognition that like I can't beat Nicole Auerbach head to head in a lot of things. So
Right.
I got to do what she's not doing, or what Pete's not doing, or what Ross isn't doing.
Yeah.
And if I'm not going to practice every week, if I'm not interviewing the 17-year-old to figure out whether he's going to go to LSU or Auburn, I have time to file the FOIA. I have time to go check the congressional hearing. I have time to talk to Learfield again. And
Hmm.
that's I'm lucky that there are people that are willing to financially support that kind of publication.
No, 100%. And obviously NIL is dominating the news cycle right now with the House settlement and all the nuances that are going on with that. And I'm curious, like, you were obviously a college football fan 10 years
Yeah.
ago. Did you think we would be where we are now in terms of NIL in college sports? Like, did you ever think that like this would like this literally reached the Supreme Court?
I, I'm not surprised that we had a Supreme Court. I mean, we've had multiple college sports Supreme Court cases before.
Right, but like
The three-way
specifically
connection.
talking like pay for play, I mean,
Yeah.
your students in fourth grade probably wrote essays about it. I certainly did.
Oh, mine definitely did. Mine, no, I was in a pro sports town. I was there when the Saints won the Super Bowl. The only thing that
Yeah.
they cared about was Drew Brees.
Oh, well, rightfully so.
Yeah,
My
sure,
point is that people wrote about like should college athletes be played as like school essays.
Oh,
And
sure.
it's like, hey, well, now they actually are.
I definitely did that in college. There's still lots of debates, right? Should they be employees? Should they have collective bargaining? How on what level should they participate in this process? Which athletes should be paid and how much?
Right.
I, I, I don't want to sit here and lie that I predicted everything that was happening now because I definitely haven't.
Sure.
But with so much money floods into the sport, and it really is an ahistorical amount of money that's come into the college sports industry.
Mhm.
You can't have that without money going to the actual labor one way or the other, and it's been going to labor since the early 20th century, just against the rules, and that was certainly the case when I started this career, and it's still happening now.
Yeah.
It's just different that now you have some of that stuff above board, some of that stuff becoming part of institutional investors, some of that stuff becoming part of capital investment cycles for other industries.
Hmm.
It's not what I would have predicted in 2014. It's not, I think, what I would have necessarily predicted in 2021. And I think that's also made me more conservative about predicting the future, because I don't think any outcome is inevitable now.
In what sense? What
Sure.
expand on that one for me?
So you can get on Twitter, and we can find agents or economists or other people that will say, well, the inevitable conclusion to all of this is explicit professionalization and collective bargaining. The only way to bring order to the transfer portal, to bring order to athlete compensation, is to have a CBA like you have in the NFL or the NBA.
Sure.
And on the substance of that argument, I really don't disagree. Like, I do think that is one of the only ways you can bring order. The way, SEC and Big Ten football, in terms of the level of money and the level of control, and is way more similar to the NFL than it is anything else, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But in order to have collective bargaining, you need to have a union. You
Hmm.
need to have something on the other side of the table to bargain with. And I've organized unions before. I've been involved in organized labor before. I worked closely with a lot of these organizations when I was in politics. I was a
Yeah.
union teacher. I helped organize a union when I was at Vox. And what I can tell you from my own experience from all of that world is that organizing unions is really fucking hard.
I can only
And
imagine.
yeah, and the reason it's hard is because it's not something that somebody outside the organization can do for you. There's not somebody in New York or in a Democratic consultancy or some suit somewhere else that does this.
Yeah.
Unions are organized, and labor is organized from coworker to coworker with high levels of personal trust and a shared sense of solidarity. And
Right.
that's extremely difficult to build in college sports, particularly college football,
Hmm.
because one, this is an extremely transient labor force. You get
Absolutely.
in at 17, you're out by 24, and sometimes less than that. It's
Sometimes more
also
than
a
that.
really, yeah, it's very young, and it's not a labor force where everybody has the same economic goals.
Right.
Even at a place like Ohio State, they have 105 guys on that football roster. And Ohio State, 60, 70 of them can, maybe more, can reasonably expect to be in the NFL. Maybe not for longer than one contract, maybe just on the practice squad, but that's a
Hmm.
reasonable expectation. But you still got a third of that roster whose professional outlook is going to be ripped dentist, like extremely
Rip
athletic
dentist.
insurance company. They're not going pro. And then that's Ohio State. And so, like, what the guy, the fourth string wide receiver needs and what Jeremiah Smith needs are not going to be the same thing. When
Right.
you move away from Ohio State, you move to Purdue. It's six dudes who are going to be in the NFL, and 98 guys who are dentists. And you zoom that out, then it becomes very difficult to bargain. We have this problem with professional unions in the NBA. What's good for LeBron James is probably not good for Raul Neto or
Oh my God,
whoever
that's
the
a name I
fifth
haven't heard
guard
in a
is
while.
on the well Cavs guy. Although I don't think Neto's on the team anymore.
True, but
Whoever the
like,
fifth guard is,
wow, what a
right?
throwback.
Yeah, right. What Larry Nance needs and what Kevin Durant needs are not the same thing.
Yeah.
And really the only group that tends to hold their own against management in these situations is the baseball union. So I look at all of that and say, you need all of that to change before you can have collective bargaining, and it hasn't. There's been a lot of people who have tried to organize college athletes over the last couple of years towards employment, towards this other kind of meaningful thing, and it hasn't happened. Honestly, it's mostly not even close to happening. And then you also have really antagonistic federal law because you can't be a public employee and in a union in many states in this country, in South Carolina, in parts of Utah, and parts of the Southeast. So you would need some substantial federal law changes that happen. And like, not to be super political here, but you know who doesn't like unions? Donald Trump. You know who doesn't like organized labor, particularly in places where it's not really a thing right now? The current governing coalition for the Republican Party. We're more likely to not have a National Labor Relations Board in 5 years than have one that expands recognition to college athletics. So all of this is to say, none of this is inevitable to me. Could we have this world that I described at the beginning of this kind of thing? Sure. Could we have a world in a year and a half where Congress passes a law that says, fuck you, college athletes aren't employees, and this is what you get, and we're closing the door on that? Yeah. And we have a Supreme Court that's not exactly it's that interested in challenging the current executive branch.
Right.
So I don't think I look at this and think I don't think the story's written yet. And if you're an administrator or a reporter or a player for that matter, I think you have to plan for multiple contingencies.
Is there one thing that you think is inevitable?
I think the only thing that's inevitable is that the current status quo can't continue. And,
Okay.
and when I say that, I mean
In terms of like NIL, like
I think honestly in terms of how college sports is governed, which
sure.
includes NIL, but also um, championship access, television money, who gets to be on what kind of committee, and everything else. So I'll kind of zoom out a little bit because this is part of the major tension in college sports right now. If you are a high level SEC program, you're bringing in around $200 million a year in athletic related revenue. And
That's
if
a
you
lot
make
of damn money.
That's a lot of money. And 60, 70-ish of that million of that money is going to be from television over the next couple of years. And then you are competing for bids in the basketball tournament and baseball and volleyball with teams like Ryder or Marist
Go
or
Bronx.
right? We're looking here in the MAAC, and these are schools that have athletic department budgets of around 25 million. And no disrespect to the Bronx, no disrespect to other people in that league, there's not a huge difference between what that athletic department's providing and what you're going to find in the NE10 or what you're going to find in Division Two in some places, in New Jersey and New York. And on one hand, you might look at that and think, well, that's the beauty of March Madness, baby. We've seen Fairleigh Dickinson and St. Peter's win some of these games, and that's what makes this attractive to everybody else. And then you also have people in the Big Ten and SEC say, yeah, but nobody's watching Fairleigh Dickinson if they make the Elite Eight. And if we suddenly have to pay players, and we're the reason why this tournament exists, why are we wasting spots on these YMCA caliber teams that have nothing in common with us? Maybe we should have a tournament for just people that are bringing in $60 or $70 million, or who meet the benchmark. So you have pressures coming right now from the legal world. You have pressures coming from the political world. You have pressures coming from some major changes happening in higher education in general. And then you have pressures coming in the administrative world about whether we should all still be governed and everything else. And donors. So I just look at all of this. It's not just NIL, not just players being compensated. And I think this can't hold, because there's no way to keep fundraising and driving revenue at this exact level and keep everybody happy. Eventually, something has to break. And that's happened before in the 70s. It happened in the late 80s after Board of Regents. But what exactly that looks like is not just a college sports story, I don't think. I think that's something that the DOE and the DOJ and the White House and potentially institutional investors and lots of other people are going to have to say in.
I was gonna say, yeah, we even touch private equity, but like that's not even a world I can't even explain. But I did want to ask you, this is your full-time job. College sports are year-round. There's so much happening, but when Matt Brown doesn't want to write another newsletter in a day or follow a tip, what is something you're doing to like unwind?
I started drinking. That unfortunately wasn't a joke. I didn't drink until I was 37, and started.
No judgment.
Not heavily, but
what's your drinking choice?
Well, it's funny when you start drinking at 37. I think you begin with the palate of a high schooler. Like you're like, here, try this beer, and you're like, this tastes like wet bread. And everyone's like, yeah, I know.
I'm the same way.
Beer. But after you do it long enough, you adapt to it. I'm like, I'm not there yet, but I do enjoy a Paloma. I do enjoy a G&T if I get enough lime in it.
Nice.
Like every other sophomore in college, if you give me an Alcopop, I'm gonna enjoy that too. But it's not. This is not something I'm doing heavily. But I can appreciate now at this stage of my life. Like after a long day, kids go to bed. I think we'll have adult beverage. But what you're describing is actually, I think, a major problem, because I write an uncommonly high volume of stuff, I think. I do 4 newsletters a week. They're generally not aggregated newsletters, so it's roughly between 6,000 and 8,000 words for Extra Points that I'm writing. A lot of that,
a ton.
It's coming from interviews that I'm having. I'm generally on the phone. If you look at my Google Calendar, probably 3.5 to 4.5 hours a day minimum. But
wow.
When we're lucky, Extra Points isn't just me anymore. We have 5 employees, but that's not big enough for me to completely have a firewall between sales and editorial.
Right.
This morning, I did a sales call with the university. I'm going to have a couple of background source meetings later this afternoon, but I speak to colleges. I am involved in some capacity with selling ad packages or institutional subscriptions. I'm involved in product work. We have a SaaS product. We have to redo our website.
Yeah.
So it is a lot, and burnout is a major concern. And what I try to do is be present and involved with my family. I have an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old daughter. I've been married for 13 years. I have a great home life, and it's all right. I have to step out of this office and go play Super Smash Brothers with my girls and take them to the woodshed.
Love that.
Yeah, and I try to find other engaging hobbies that take me away from screens. So I have a wood shop in my garage, and I'll badly make furniture, and woodworking projects there. The YMCA is within walking distance of me. I go boxing once a week.
Amazing.
I start piano lessons with my daughter, my youngest daughter. And so we both suck. Her excuse is she's 7. Mine is like we're working off the same books and everything. But that's kind of a cool experience too. I think for your kids to see you be bad at something.
Yeah.
we didn't even get to talk about this. Like, I used to be a musician, but I play
Really?
drums.
That's
Like
awesome.
that was part of how I paid for college.
You
Was
kind of
that
strike me as a drummer. I don't know why. You
no,
kind of strike me as a drummer.
I loved it, but drums are not an instrument that's conducive to like the apartment life. Um,
No.
and so like when I got married, I sold my kit and now do other instruments. But how you unwind is different for everybody. But
Definitely.
I think for anyone who's getting into entrepreneurship or getting into this industry, like you have to be, I think, really regimented with your calendar and to
Yeah.
find other things that build you up. Because it's very easy to fall into a cycle of me just working 75 hours a week and doom scrolling. That will, I'm not saying this for shock value, like that will kill me. Like I know that I can't do that because it will kill me. I have to do other things to protect myself from myself in that world. It's not an easy thing to do.
My thing is, I've recently started hosting bar trivia with a
Oh,
company
good
in
for you. That'd be
Jersey.
fun. Yeah,
It's shout out Trivia Revolution, Revolution Entertainment. Like it's a blast.
that would be a lot of
I
fun.
hosted I hosted bingo last night too. We do three games. We do trivia, bingo, and name that tune.
What's
It's
what's
a
the median age of your bingo crew?
it's a good question. I mean, yesterday we had a smaller crowd. I mean, we hosted at different like bars and breweries.
Okay, so so
So
so,
it's
so not blue hairs then in a
no,
sense.
not senior citizens. No. Um,
Okay, that's fun.
you know, really, it's anybody who comes, to the restaurant or, yeah, it's I would say it's people in their 20s, maybe late 20s, early 30s.
Wow.
It's not we're not going to like a college town bar by any means. Um, but yeah, it's like bar restaurants and different local breweries.
Do you have to write the trivia questions yourself, or
My
how does
boss,
it work?
JD, he sends us the quiz every. It depends on the day you're hosting. Like today's Friday. If somebody's hosting today, they'll get the Friday quiz. If they host on a Thursday, they get the Thursday quiz. He kind of does it like that. But I love calling out what I don't know. Like I'll give an example. It's just like when I saw a question where it's like I'm going to give you four names of real people. You're going to tell me their stage name, and then I said to the crowd, I was like, I was today years old when I found out Elton John was a stage name.
Same. What was it? What was Elton? How was it? What was Elton John's Christian name? What was he baptized as?
Reginald Kenneth Dwight.
Yeah, I'd go by Elton John too. My name was Reginald. Sorry to all the Reginalds listening to this. I, I get it. I know it. Listen, I know a thing or two about not necessarily loving your name either. This is terrible for SEO. It's terrible whenever I try to travel internationally. Um, but mom married a gringo, so here we are.
But yeah, that's my escape for like work. But Matt, something I did want to ask you, and it's something I ask everybody at kind of the end is just professionalism aside, extra points aside, everything aside, what's something you like most or admire about yourself?
About myself. Um, I think one quality that I have, which has served me well, not just professionally, but I think socially and other parts of my life, is I am an intellectually curious person. One thing that I man, why I haven't quit this job, even though it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
is I feel like I get to learn something new every day, and I get to be a little bit of an anthropologist when you work in college sports, because a
Oh,
big part of that job is traveling to different schools and different communities which serve different kinds of people and learning what makes them unique and special and how they approach some of these big challenges. I was in the Rio Grande Valley 2.5 weeks ago. Last year I did a story in Provo, Utah. I went to Hawaii. I went to Bozeman, Montana. I've
wow.
done Fairfield, Connecticut. Like I think we'll probably do some other things in the South later this year. And that's deeply interesting. And when you're interested in other people and when they're what they're passionate about and what makes them unique, they'll be interested in you. So it's not difficult for me to go to a party or go to a setting where we're not talking about sports and for me to
Right.
find something to learn about or talk about other people with. And fundamentally, I think people enjoy talking about themselves and they enjoy talking about their passions. And if you could say, like, you know what, I don't know anything about stained glass window development. Let's hear about that. Tell me about Dubuque, Iowa. Tell me about the Old Testament, or whatever. People will be drawn to you for that, and that's helped me with Extra Points. But that's helped me make friends. That's helped me be be involved in my kids' school and in my community, and
Yeah.
it's been helpful.
Man, I love that so much. It's refreshing to hear that, people are still curious, and curiosity is such a good thing, and I love that, man.
I don't know how to teach it to someone either, right? Like when we've hired people, or I've mentored college students or developed it. It's like I can teach you. Filing a FOIA is not hard. I can
Right.
teach you who the athletic directors are. I can teach you where money comes from in college sports. Like I can make an introduction to a source. I can't
Mhm.
teach you to be interested.
Right.
And maybe somebody else has figured out how to do that, and I can't. Right? I'm not a psychology person, but I feel like you either have that or you don't. And
Right.
that I think that's a prerequisite to do this kind of work.
For sure, man. Awesome. Well, I'm just really excited to see what's next for you. Maybe another bowl game. Definitely
Another
bowl
bowl game. Yeah, we've got some fun updates coming to our computer game, hopefully by the end of the month, and maybe we'll find some other stuff to do after that.
Definitely, man. This episode is brought to you by Digital Sport by Hot Paper Lantern, a division of the PR, brand, and marketing agency Hot Paper Lantern. Digital Sport by Hot Paper Lantern helps brands grow at the intersection of sports, tech, and gaming. Learn more at hpldigitalsport.com or find them on LinkedIn at Digital Sport by Hot Paper Lantern.